So today we're going to be talking about teaching, some essence, and some principles that we can use in terms of adding value. So let's talk about it. So if we imagined, just as a brief tangent, for a second, an acorn or some sort of plant, and we put it in the ground, everything was kind of already optimal so that it wouldn't die right away or do anything that would be out of the ordinary. And over time, it would rain, the sun would shine, the plant would sprout, and it'd grow. It'd grow and maybe become an oak tree. Okay, well, if we look at that, well, it was already a part of the plant that the acorn has the same DNA as the later oak tree. It's just that that potential was actualized because of the environment. Like if the environment didn't suit an oak tree, well, the seed would die or it would just stay in a certain stasis for a very long time. And there's definitely plants in the desert that can stay a seed for a long time, 100 years. And when that one rainstorm comes, then they flourish, right? So let's talk about it. So it wasn't because the potentiality of actually learning is impossible without a teacher. It's just that what the teacher does is similar to a gardener or a doctor, is organize all the various environment to make learning and actualizing the potential, highest potential, easier. Right? Imagine if you studied the composition of the soil and made sure that composition was optimal for oak trees. And then you put it in maybe you could put it in some sort of environment where the oxygen levels were just right, or the sunlight was perfect, or the water supply was plenty but not too much, right? It was just right for the oak tree to grow at the maximal rate and actualize the highest potential, right? That you would consider an oak tree to actualize. Great. So it wasn't because the gardener forced anything on them. It was just that they organized the things around it to exemplify and help grow and suit the plant. Now you think that those healthy medians, those perfect ratios, because it's all in proportion, it's all measurements or whatever, but do you think they would have done anything different if it was a carrot that they were growing, or a stalk of corn, or maybe an apple tree? You think they might have done something different? Well, of course, because it's not dependent on the gardener to decide what's best for the oak tree, right? It's the oak tree and then reverse engineering what is optimal for that. So maybe if we thought about students that way, that not every student is the same. Of course not. No, even when we think about ourselves, we think ourselves as so different, right? And then our constant pursuit of normalcy is an interesting endeavor at the least, right? But we can just extrapolate that from ourselves, that we're different in some capacity or another. So would our environment be best suited where everybody's treated the exact same? Maybe, maybe not, right? And that's what's interesting. So let's just imagine that we could have, because a lot of teachers, they have to teach a curriculum. So they're kind of, their hands are tied in terms of what they can actually do, and they slip in valuable wisdom that's not in the books, because most of those books are not really, built for wisdom. They're more like, we know that there's some element of that, of course, in everything, right? But wisdom is wisdom, and in comparison with the absolute principle, I'd pursue wisdom over some random book. Okay. And so let's think about that. So imagine that we want to pursue wisdom and actualize the highest potential of the person that's right in front of us. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to know them. We have to know what plant they are. Plant. I keep using that analogy, but we have to know who they are. We have to have some sort of connection, get a history, get how they speak, modalities in which they perceive the world. If they're like, man, I can totally get a grasp of this concept, well, they're kind of a kinesthetic person. So we can use that when we're communicating with them. If they have certain mannerisms that aren't too over the top or whatever to their generation, then we can use them and we'll develop more of a rapport. But we're trying to develop a connection, because if we develop a connection, the looser, this might not be good, or it kind of is good, but the thing is that they'll trust us more, right? And trusting is a relationship, and it's also how we achieve safety, because through connection and through the benevolence of friends is how we are protected, not through fancy fortresses or huge such and such things, right? It's people, and our systems knows that, and so when we have a connection with another person, we tend to lean on each other and tend to accept, or at least value their thoughts and ideas more. And the thing is that if we're the teacher and if we're trying to teach them something, give them something valuable, because we wouldn't want to teach something that's not true, right? Imagine a teacher teaching something that's trash, unwise, foolish, um, just totally terrible in every facet, like objective and subjective ways. You wouldn't want them teaching, right? Even if they were a great teacher, well, it's just the act of giving information, directing awareness, stoking the fire in a certain direction, right? It has nothing to do with the content of what they're saying. It's just the ability to get it across to them. So you can have totally unwise people and totally wise people being great teachers, but the products of that teaching in the student are either going to be wise or they're going to be unwise, right? So so if we're like, okay, well, okay, we got the connection, we're getting the connection, we're doing all that stuff, and I'm getting to know them so we know what they value, and if they don't know what their purpose is and they can't sum it, they don't know what their purpose is, then we'll help them find it, right? Or there's something about them that they really love, really enjoy, and we stoke that fire. We all remember teachers that weren't they, because the difference between teachers and mentors is that connection. So really what we're not saying is teaching, because teaching is a verb, right? But really what we're pursuing is the connection or a mentorship relationship, right? Because we all remember the teachers that really bonded and connected with us, and that we made important life decisions, crazy life decisions, like really important life decisions based on this person stoking our fire and believing that what we could do was huge, more than we could see ourselves. Like and then we trusted them, and then we made our decisions, and then we went into these various fields that somehow exemplified that relationship into the future, that powerful whatever. And a lot of students, when they become teachers, that's what they're looking for. I'm in it for the money. Well, sometimes, depending on like what kind of teaching you're doing. But the thing is that we all have like a lot of teachers have those bonds, and that's why they went into teaching, and that's really powerful. Sometimes that's a lot more valuable than money, especially when you look back and, if you could see like after your death with a eulogy, and all your students who became amazingly successful all show up and they give a eulogy, and imagining what they would say and what they noticed. And if you could just imagine that for a second, that what you did impacted people long after your death, has something far more powerful and meaningful that I think we all like have in our back of our minds, but we don't really say that much. So, getting back to the topic at hand, well, if we think about that, and we inspire them and we make that connection in the mentorship bond, and then we stoke their fire of what they really believe and what they really want and desire and their purpose, we're feeding the person that is there, right? And we're helping them grow. We're making all those environments in place. Maybe sometimes you connect them with people, and that helps them grow in that direction, or you present them with a couple opportunities that they might grab hold of. Like, imagine if one of your students was some sort of writer, right? This transcends whatever I have competencies in. If I see that this person just loves to write, maybe what I'd like to do is investigate and talk with some of the writing department or some of the universities, some opportunities that a creative writer, if that's what he or she wants to do, and just kind of, hey, I was thinking of you. I saw this passing by here. I think you'd do great. And you give that to them, and then you walk away, and they're sitting there looking at this thing. You got them, right? That's all you had to do. Like, you're just helping them realize what you see in them, what's already there. It's just whether or not they see anything, just like if you're in a dark room or a brightly lit room, doesn't mean that the chair that we're about to fall over isn't there, right? And it could be completely dark in that room, but if we memorized it to such the point that we know it, we can be blind and negotiate it and run through it like the lights were on, because we know. Uh, Gosh, what else? Um, oh, and another aspect, if so, plants have always been around long before gardeners, right? So if we force them to learn anything without value, well, as soon as the force is taken away, because you can change people's incentives by forcing them to do things, um, that's okay. Not okay, relative sense, right? But the thing is, as soon as that pressure's off, as soon as they pass the test, they don't give a crap what they just learned. They're not going to go out there, they're not going to study, they're not going to read the books, they're not going to put in the effort, they're not going to say no to some various parties because they know what their purpose is, they know what their life is meant to be. It's like, so if we can just, and this goes outside of just teaching our curriculum or whatever, because I'm not a public school teacher, I'm not a private school teacher, I'm not any of them, okay? I maybe taught I've taught a couple private lessons in terms of trumpet, and that's the thing that I'm competent in, at least at the moment. Okay. Um, but yeah, but if they talked about something that was really special to them, guess what I'd spend the after the lesson talking about? Because if that turned out that they were going to be the next pro hockey player and it was just their major dream, why wouldn't I want to jump on that bandwagon? Like, there's literally no risk to jump on the bandwagon and stoke their fire in terms of being the only one that believes in their dream. And if they do it, great. If they find something better, which is definitely possible, they'll do it. But the thing is that they'll always remember the way you made them feel over what you said to them. So if they come to you with an idea and then you maybe present them with a couple, just stuff, or just have that connection with them, and you stoke their fire, they'll figure it out. And especially if we also bring into their awareness knowledge and wisdom and the value of that, because eventually we want them to continue learning and growing and pursuing their passion and to realize their maximum potential, regardless of whether they're in our classroom or a lesson or not, right? And that's where the major people that move the needle in terms of society, oh God, I hate that word, I'm sorry, but in terms of, the world, humanity, in a positive direction, right? Because if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the wisdom, you're not going to be able to know what to do or how to do it in terms of actualizing that dream, goal, desire, wish, you name it. So if we can just direct them to those various resources and stoke their fire and make that connection, because we're just drawing their awareness to all these things that are valuable to them to help them realize what's already inside of them, just like what Socrates or Plato would say to their students or whatever, we'd be incredibly successful and in terms of what we're actually trying to accomplish, which is getting to the essence of them and giving them all the valuable information to help them live the best life that they can. And after that, when we look back on what we did and how we did it and all the things that basically they accomplished, even if nobody knows, and that student that you talked about creative writing with is now in the lunchroom making those doodles that they always did, but for some reason there's something different, that we just notice that there's a new timbre, there's a box of new pencils, an eraser, elastic eraser that you tear apart, a kneaded eraser, that's what it's called, a kneaded eraser. They have all these tools and they're looking up videos, and they have these books from the library that nobody's checked out in 15 years, even though the school was built 12 years ago, and they're just like, you know that nobody else knows what that means to them. Nobody else knows what you presented them, the connection that you and those other students have. But you know who knows? They know, and they'll never forget it.